Why do you suppose our society is reacting the way it is to the COVID-19 pandemic? This isn't the first pandemic we've had. We've had several before. We have never responded this way. We've never tried to quarantine healthy people. We've never shut down the economy and told everyone to stay home. Why is it so different this time? Why are we reacting this way? The answer has to do with a problem that goes way beyond the current crisis and is really a grave threat, I think, to our whole culture. I believe the reason that we've gotten ourselves into this mess is because of an irrational overconfidence in soft science. When I say soft science, I'm referring to scientific studies that are imprecise. Hard sciences are incredibly precise. Aerodynamics, aerospace engineering, it's incredible what they can do. They can put calculations on a paper, send a guy off to the moon, and just calculate everything and have him land in an exact spot, have everything work out. They can build airplanes that can fly hundreds of people across the ocean hundreds of times without crashing and be reliable. It's amazing how accurate the hard sciences are. But soft sciences are very different. They can never have that kind of precision because they involve too many unknown factors. Most of the time, soft sciences are soft because they involve the factor of human decision making, which is always a wild card. You can never predict the accuracy of something if it's going to involve human decision making. You never know what people are going to do. And the more people are involved, the softer the science is, the harder it is to predict. That's why you get somebody who studies physics and he can reliably land a man on the moon, but you get someone else who's just as intelligent, has just as much schooling, just as much experience, all the rest, who puts all his studies into the stock market, and at best he's 50-50, right? Why? Why is the one guy so accurate and the stock market guy he can't be anywhere close to the accuracy of the trajectory of a rocket? Well, it's because the stock market involves human decision making, human emotions, reactions to news, and events that pop up that are unforeseen. There's just too many unknown factors to be able to be sure. Psychology is another example of a soft science. In the movies, psychologists they're always right. They say, oh, they got this profile of this criminal and he's going to act this way, and he always does. He did this because of something in his past, and sure enough, that thing is in his past, and there's always right. That's a fantasy. We can make educated guesses about tendencies, but that's about it. If psychology were a hard science, the police could just show up at the bank when the bank robber was going to come and put him in cuffs. They could know ahead of time what was going to happen. That just doesn't happen. Throughout this pandemic ordeal, we have heard over and over, trust the experts, trust the experts, trust the scientists, the doctors. And all these decisions about shutting down the economy and all the social distancing and everything else has been in the hands of medical experts. So, what about medicine? Is medicine a soft science or a hard science? Well, there's a whole lot of both in medicine. Some aspects of medicine are very hard science. No question. I think of Dr. Carson, when he's separating conjoined twins, the incisions he's making, the little blood vessels that he's tying off, or whatever it is he does, each thing he does, he knows exactly what the outcome is going to be. It's very hard science. He can predict the outcome, and they know what they're doing. There's a lot of things in medicine they have them down pat. There are certain medications that 100% of the time they work, right? That's hard science. But there are many, many other elements of medicine that are much, much softer. Just about every time I go to the doctor, that's what I get. I get, try this and see what happens, Usually what happens is I pay them $75 and I'm just as sick as I ever was. But that's, actually that's fine, as long as they're honest about what's a hard science and what's a soft science, what they know for sure and what they're guessing at. If a doctor hands me some pills and says, these will work, do these, take this, and it'll work, 100%. And then he hands me some other pills, and he says, well, you could try these. I'm not sure what the effect will be. Maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. That's helpful. If he's just honest and he tells me which it is, then that can be very helpful. We have a problem in our culture, though, where the experts are overstating their level of certainty. And we have a media that overestimates and a whole culture that overestimates the reliability of the soft sciences. And that's what's happened with this COVID-19 ordeal. Are the models upon which they've made all these decisions to decimate our economy and our culture hard science or soft science? Well, obviously they're very soft. They said we were going to have 240,000 deaths in the United States. Just weeks later, they're saying now, worst case scenario, 60,000? Instead of 240, it's down to 60, which is basically the same as the seasonal flu, what we get every year. That model was off by 400% at least. That is a soft science. And there hasn't been a 72-hour period where the numbers have stayed even a little bit stable. They're jumping all over the place. The guesses on their numbers of ventilators that we would need, that was more like 800% off. That's a very, very soft science. In fact, I would put it more in the category of a wild guess than soft science. They're just dead wrong. Now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I don't fault the scientists for being that far off. It's probably impressive that they got as close as they did. I mean, they're dealing with a new virus, unknown characteristics, a population with unknown number of carriers, and unpredictable behaviors. Of course they're going to be way off. I'm not faulting them for that. I certainly couldn't have done any better in predicting it myself. What could have been done, though, and what should have been done, is let everyone know up front how worthless the numbers were. How unsure they were, instead of giving them like facts that we need to base important decisions on. That would justify putting 16 million people out of work in a couple of weeks and destroying businesses and all the damage to our culture and our society. And by the way, I say culture, it's not just our economy that's being decimated, it's our very culture. I heard some estimates say that something like 30% of our economy is shut down right now. And it's the bottom 30%, like the 30%, least important 30%, at least according to our governing authorities, what they deem as least important. But it's a lot of that 30% makes up our culture, what our whole culture is. And that's just being destroyed. So those decisions, those small businesses being destroyed, these people's livelihoods being thrown in the trash, going up in smoke, all of that, millions of people out of work, tens of millions of people out of work, and we don't even know the damage done by all this quarantining and people being cooped. I just think of the poor women and children who have an abusive husband and father. They say that the alcohol sales are double what they were. You got a guy like that drinking twice as much as normal, no job, cooped up in the house with the wife and kids all day, and the abuse that goes on, suicides, the depression, all this stuff. I mean, we can't even begin to calculate the damage done by this, the decisions that we've made based on these experts' numbers that turned out to be completely wrong. But we were told we had to do it. We had to obey the scientists. We had to obey the experts. We had to listen to the experts, listen to the experts, listen to the experts. Which experts? Economic experts? No, not them. The political experts? No, not them. Behavioral experts? No. Theological experts? Certainly not them. No, only the medical experts. And they told us hospitalizations are going to be through the roof. So we got to build these makeshift hospitals. We got to do all this stuff. So they built makeshift hospitals for the overflow. And some of them had 0 patients. Oh, that's all right. Millions of dollars spent, wasted, thrown. Just throw it on our great-grandchildren's tab. They'll cover it after we're dead. And again, I'm not faulting the prognosticators for being that far off. What I do fault is our culture for taking their guesses and treating them as if they were hard science. And making very important decisions, damaging decisions based on wild guesses. And now that we know for sure that the models are worthless, still, our culture wants to base everything based on everything we do now, based on those same prognosticators. I keep hearing we can't open up the economy too quickly because if we do, then it's going to we're going to have a resurgence of the disease and all that. Based on what? These same experts who were as wrong as they could be in telling us that we need to shut down, based on their information, we're saying, well, we got to open up in a certain way. And if we don't, somehow we're bucking science if we don't accept what they're saying? It just never ceases to amaze me how wrong the experts can be and still enjoy the total confidence of our entire culture and the society and reverence in our society. It's just like we never learn. In today's news, I keep hearing that we have successfully flattened the curve. It worked! It worked! The social distancing, all this, shutting down the economy, it worked! We flattened the curve. And it's all because of what we did. And how do they know that? They're saying, well, the numbers are so small. That's why the numbers are so small, is because of what we did. How do they know that? How do they know that it wouldn't have been exactly the same shaped curve if we had done nothing? How do they know? They don't know. They don't know. They're guessing. It's a soft science. And the people that are guessing are the ones that were so wrong all along. And even the data they're gathering now, what good is it? I mean, even the hard data they're getting after the fact is in many cases worthless. They're counting the number of deaths. They're including everyone who dies with the virus, even if the virus had nothing to do with their death. Like the baby, there's one infant that was accidentally smothered by its parents. And then, for whatever reason, after the baby's death, they tested the body, found out it happened to have coronavirus. That virus had absolutely nothing to do with it, and yet it's chalked up as a coronavirus death. Well, you get suicides, murders, deaths that are caused by other factors that have nothing to do with the disease, and they happen to have the disease, and so they're being counted. And now it's even worse. Yesterday in New York City, the number of cases is dropping, but the number of deaths in one day just spiked. And they asked, well, why did they spike? And then it turns out the reason they spiked is because they looked at all the number of total deaths in the state and said, well, this is like 3,000 more than normal we would expect in this time period. And so there's a lot of these people that died that were never tested. They must have had coronavirus. So we'll just take that 3,000 extra number and we'll just throw it onto the corona numbers. Just assume. Now, maybe those people had coronavirus, maybe they didn't, but that is not science. This overconfidence in soft science and guesswork is a function of human arrogance. We want to imagine that we have way more knowledge and power and control than we actually have. That's just the human condition. That is human sinfulness. We have so much knowledge, so much power, so much technology, we can control even judgments from God, like a pandemic. Therefore, we don't need to repent and turn back to God. No, we can figure this out on our own. That was graphically evidenced yesterday when Governor Cuomo of New York made this statement. The number of fatalities dropped, and he said this: the number is down because we brought that number down. God did not do that. Faith did not do that. We did that. It was Governor Cuomo's masterful handling of this disease in New York that brought the numbers down, not God, not prayer, not anything like that. How does he know that? What colossal arrogance that is. You would think that the man who oversaw the worst outbreak of this disease in the entire world in New York City might be just a little bit humbled. He might just, the number of cases and deaths in New York dwarf anything. You can't even compare. They're orders of magnitude higher than any other city in the United States. There's nothing like it in the whole country. And it just decimated this city. And meanwhile, Governor Cuomo's doing everything he can to slow it down, to stop it, to do whatever, mitigate it. He's doing everything he possibly can. And nevertheless, it's the worst in the whole world. You would think that the result of that, a guy like that would say, well, maybe this pandemic is actually a little bit bigger than me. Maybe it's bigger than, maybe I'm not the one in control. Maybe I better bow my knee to God. But no, instead, he waits until there's a slight downtick in the numbers and then comes on TV and claims credit, and not only claims credit, but deprecates God. How could he possibly know what effect prayers had or didn't have? It's just like what you read so often in the Old Testament, where God sends a catastrophe in order to get the people to repent, and the stiff-necked, stubborn people refuse to repent and just imagine they're somehow in control still. The purpose of this commentary is not for me to just come on and complain about policies that I disagree with and how the virus was handled. That's not what I'm doing. It's not my goal. I have a much longer term objective than that. My goal in this video is to just simply urge you to be careful how much faith you place in soft sciences. It affects a lot of other areas of life besides this crisis. People use numbers from soft sciences to control us, to manipulate us, to gain, to move money, huge amounts of money around for various agendas. And it's easy to get sucked into that, to get sucked into those causes and to get worked up because those numbers are reported as facts, as hard facts in the media. Very often I'm accused of being anti-science because I'm so skeptical about so many things that are called scientific. You will face ridicule if you use discernment, if you don't buy into what our culture labels scientific. If you don't just swallow it hook, line, and sinker, you're going to be ridiculed. But we have to have discernment. In our culture, soft sciences have been lumped together with hard sciences under this one general category of science. And anything under the heading of science is sacrosanct in this culture and must never be questioned or doubted. It's just the way the culture, you can read an article, you can have one fact that has been proven by all kinds of rigorous, hard science, and in the very next breath have something else portrayed with the exact same level of certainty that's mostly guesswork. They'll tell you this rock formation appeared 14 million years ago when a glacier came through and it had this effect, and it's all guesswork. It's all soft science. They have such high confidence in their ability to, and then they find out, there was a flood, 100 years ago that caused this, and I guess we'll just change our numbers. It's just like the COVID numbers. It's like, 14 million. Oh no, it was 100. And it's just like, it's such a soft science, but they present it as a hard science. Anytime you take a fragment of data and you try to extrapolate it out millions of times. We've been studying for 100 years, and we say, we'll just extrapolate that out for a billion years. You don't think you're going to be off by a little bit? It's just guesswork. Geologist looks at a rock and says, this looks to me like it's a billion years old. I don't begrudge him his opinion. That's fine. But there's far too many unknowns for him to present that as a fact. Way too many unknowns. Goodness sakes, for one thing, he has no idea what effect the curse had on that rock. Right? At the fall, when God cursed the creation, he didn't know what effect that had on the way that rock looks and the properties of it. He doesn't know if the rate of decay of everything has been exactly the same all this time. How could he possibly know that? Another one of the soft sciences is climate science. That's based on the same kind of computer models that gave us these bogus COVID numbers. And it's the same kind of inaccuracy too. Those models declared with absolute certainty that our coastal cities would be underwater by the year 2000. If you doubted that in the 80s, you were anti-science, and you're going against the consensus of all scientists, they were so sure. When people accuse me of being anti-science, sometimes I'm tempted to just say, you know what, you're right. I'm tired of bucking science. I'm tired of being anti-scientific. I'm going to embrace science. From now on, I'm adopting the view that, yes, our coastal cities were underwater by the year 2000. It didn't happen, right? And now we're 20 years later, they're still not underwater. We have record amounts of ice in the South Pole and all that. And yet they're just as confident as ever in their updated models. I'm not against the soft sciences. They can be very useful in certain contexts if we're honest about what we know for sure and what's guesswork. And it's sad, it's sad that we can't trust the media and we can't trust certain scientists to be upfront about what we know for sure and what's hard and soft science. Because there's a whole lot of stuff that I doubt that maybe it's right on. Maybe it is rock hard science. But I have to doubt it because I can't trust them to tell me. But anyway, I just want to urge you. Be discerning. Don't be intimidated by the word science. When you see something in the news, or read it online, and it's presented as fact, remind yourself, you live in a culture that doesn't distinguish between hard and soft science. And so don't be afraid to doubt those things, even if they seem to be accepted by everyone on the planet, all the smartest people in the room. Because it doesn't take much in this. And remember, the sciences are being more and more, in universities, more and more controlled by a lot of liberal agendas, political agendas that influence them as well. You got to take that in consideration. In this day and age, it really doesn't take much to fool everyone. And so we have to be discerning, even when the whole culture is going in a certain way. And if you doubt that, just look at the experts' predictions just 3 weeks ago.